Hey, welcome back to Choose Courage Inc. And you know what? We haven't had a guest in a minute. And so I'm super excited on today's episode to be joined by Melanie Penney, who is a stylist and a creative who turned one of the hardest seasons of her life into a journey of self-trust, healing, and self-expression. She was a part of the tech layoffs in 2023, when things really started to burn to the ground. But she took this as a chance to pursue her dreams. And so today, her personal wardrobe styling business, TOPISMA, embodies her values of environmental consciousness, community connection, and really a cooperative design approach that is based and grounded in self-love through feeling good in not only what we wear, but also in personal growth through exploratory self-expression. She is incredibly gifted and skilled at listening deeply to her clients and designing cooperatively so that the results reflect not an imposed version of quote unquote taste, but a collaboration that expresses the uniqueness of the wearer and really helps to equip them to continue forward on their journey to self and really returning more and more to who they are. Together, we talk about what happens when you finally get tired of playing small. And we also get into how entrepreneurship becomes a mirror for your growth and why healing isn't just found in therapy, but it can also be found in the way that you get dressed, the way that you reclaim your voice, and the way that you define wealth and freedom for yourself. So wherever you're listening from, I want you to take a deep breath. I want you to grab a glass of water, settle in, and get ready to choose courage over comfort with us. Let's get it. Mel, I'm so excited to be doing this podcast episode with you. And I kind of just want to jump straight into it. And I'm wondering if maybe you could share with us. I want you to take us to the moment when you realized that you were done playing small. What was happening around you? What's the tea? What was going on?
Okay, well, here we are. I was watching my balance on my savings just going down after
Mm,
being laid off and going through a divorce and then being unemployed for quite a while. And on top of this, I had said goodbye to my greyhound who had been fighting bone cancer. So I was like deep in the despair of mourning a life that had totally changed within a few months. I was doing weekly therapy to get help with my financial trauma and my sense of deserving. And, eventually I found low income housing in an artist building and I got government health care. And so at this point, I was the only one depending on me, but I thought, seriously, can I even depend on me?
mm,
I was thinking like, what exactly is my plan? I realized I had to stop holding my business idea in this fantasy realm and start making it real through consistent steps forward. And I had a lot of support from friends and loved ones, but I was just stuck. And it's funny, my girlfriend was kind of getting tired of me rejecting their advice for business success, but then also not coming up with any of my own ideas or plans. And so was I. I was really getting tired of it. And we both knew I needed help. And they literally said to me that I needed a board to consult with. And I agreed, but I didn't know how or where. And then one day, there in my inbox was an invitation to do this work in a compassionate community setting. And the email said, choose courage, with some emoji decorations that added flavor to the words. Now, I had been familiar, Vivianne, with your philosophies from your previous work. So I instinctually knew that this was potentially going to be the supportive learning environment I had been waiting for.
mm.
And I knew I had been playing small, but I really didn't know how to get out of that trap or whether it was possible to pay the bills doing something that I'm passionate about. So I'm curious, how did you know? How'd you know that we all
Yeah.
needed that?
I mean, what I'm hearing from you too is it sounds like you got to this point of being sick and tired of being sick and tired.
It's true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think a lot of people, they get to that point and they normalize that. Oh, this is just a part of being an adult. This is just the part of the season that I'm in. And I think if we're not careful, we might find ourselves hitting more of a bottom than we actually even need to be at. in order to realize that things can be better and different.
Oh, I relate to that for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know for me, this kind of moment of, okay, I think I'm going to bet on myself and I'm not going to endure came from I was taking short-term medical leave. It's like a 2.5 month leave at the end of 2020.
Mm,
And I remember being like, ooh, I don't think I can go back into corporate. I feel like I need to try something different. I feel like I need to bet on myself. And I started to watch the movie Judas and the Black Messiah. Have you seen that movie?
no, not yet.
Ah, it's so good. Okay. Judas and the Black Messiah. It's based on a true story, and it's about Fred Hampton, who was the leader of the Chicago Black Panthers, and how the Chicago police and either the CIA or the FBI worked together to assassinate him because he was bringing people together. He was even bringing, the blacks, the Puerto Ricans, the poor whites together for justice and just a better quality of life. So they worked to assassinate him. Anyways, there's this scene in the beginning of this movie where there's a bunch of Black Chicagoans and they're super excited that they're going to be naming this community college after Malcolm X. And Fred Hampton gets up and he's, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. You think that's going to make you free?
Hmm.
And I just had this moment where I was like, yo, I'm not free.
Mm.
Like, we're going to give you this little employee resource group. You think that's going to make you free? We're going to give you this little raise and this title change. You think that's going to make you free? And I was just, I'm not free. And that in combination with that later that day, I also watched Jay-Z and Pharrell's music video for the song Entrepreneur, which basically just is a music video showing a bunch of Black entrepreneurs and like the dope things that they're doing. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't grind myself to help my billionaire boss go to space again. There has to be a different way.
What an awakening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, but I think like in the midst of that though, we're often confronted with our beliefs, right? Whether that's about value, success, impact, what have you. I'm wondering, as you were in this transition from I'm sick and tired to being sick and tired to, ooh, yes, I think I'm gonna bet on myself and see what's possible. What story were you telling yourself about success and worth at that point? And when did you notice it start to shift, like in this journey?
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally was that millennial with the programming that, college is going to get you the best jobs. If you just invest in a degree or two, you're going to be successful and safe for life and, play the game, right? And you can save up toward retirement and just take vacations and buy yourself nice things as you keep moving up the ladder until then. And
Hmm.
the structures have your back, basically. So, that obviously comes crumbling down with experience. And, I graduated 1 year after the 2008 recession. So it was kind of like being thrown
Mm,
into a different version of reality than what everybody was telling me. But, at this moment that I described earlier before I got laid off, like the corporate setting where had been giving me a lot of warning signs already. Like there
mhm,
were just countless reorgs that were always knocking the legs out from under any effort towards meaningful changes. And it really kept me and my colleagues in the UX department afraid, with our heads down and always playing by the rules of the hierarchy of power.
mm.
And like I learned that even in this not for profit org, profit was going to rule everything. And it was just going to be impossible to win on behalf of doing the right thing for customers if that's the only argument I have. So honestly, by the end, I wasn't even using my brain in all the ways that I was really longing to. But the big shift came obviously when I was laid off. And I thought that with my new free time, I could put my energy into my passion project, which is helping people find a path to self actualization and self love through creative self expression and how they dress. And it would let me use cooperative design techniques from my UX work to help make a personal difference in people's lives. So that's where it shifted for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and something I want to pull on from your story that I think probably a lot of folks who are listening will resonate with is they're seeing the signs, like they're
Mhm.
seeing the signals, the red flags, and yet we can sometimes just choose to make the most of or endure the situation instead of think about, okay, how could things be different? So I love hearing that your mind was open to, okay, well, what else could there be? And that you used your UX gifts and skills and backgrounds to help you with that.
Yeah, thanks. It was a connection in my head, but it wasn't in reality yet, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think similar to you, right? You know, the story I told myself is pretty simple. It's if I work hard enough, I'll be safe.
Mhm.
You know, if I produce, I'll be praised. If I perform well
Mhm.
enough, maybe I'll be seen and I'll be recognized. And I think for myself and probably other folks I know I've talked to, success was never really just about achievement. It was about survival. It was it was a way to stay chosen in a world that teaches you that love, acceptance, recognition often has conditions. And a lot of
Yeah.
that is can be amplified in the workplace. So kept climbing, kept collecting these gold stars, kept, running myself into the ground, hoping maybe like one would cancel out the other. But I think for me, like the shift didn't come in a single lightning bolt moment per se. It came in like whispers and moments, right? It was like the fatigue that no cup of coffee could overcome. Or like the quiet resentment I felt toward just my situation and what I was experiencing, or even just these like moments of grief, right? And so I think I started to see that success built on self-abandonment isn't success. It's
Yeah.
self-erasure, and it's taken a little bit to detox myself from that, for sure.
It does take time. Yeah, I relate for sure.
Yeah. What's kinda coming up for you as you're thinking about it taking time to do that?
Yeah, I think about the word you said, chosen,
Mm,
because built into that, you don't realize it until you untangle it. Maybe you're on the other side of the story, but that a it's a condition of scarcity. And I think that same like belief in scarcity that made me feel like entrepreneurship wasn't gonna be in the cards for me.
mm,
So yeah, so it's very fear-based. It does take time to recover from that, and I think it's pretty incredible to even shed shed it bit by bit. It's a
yeah.
process.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope for folks who are listening, this is also an invitation to get curious about the ways that your workplace is capitalizing on undealt with wounds, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's around being chosen, whether it's around being or feeling like you're enough. If you don't work through that stuff, capitalism will take advantage of it and will dig you into a deeper hole. So also just like an important reminder of we cannot allow these systems to continue to take in a way that makes it feel like crawling out of a hole is this never ending task and is incredibly difficult and non ending. Because healing is not a scarcity, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I want to shift a little bit because I think when you talk about healing, we talk about this, the dynamics that we're often put in that make us want to be chosen within these entities. We also have to talk about money. We have to talk about power and identity. And I'm wondering, and maybe you could maybe share with us, how did losing a job in tech, especially in an industry that's often tied to prestige and stability, how did that change your relationship with money and power?
So, yeah, it was absolutely a place of, well, at least offering stability and power as like a carrot. And when that was taken away at the same time as leaving also a personal relationship that was giving me a lot of privilege, it was a rude awakening. I was quite afraid and shaken to the point of being petrified to do anything, not even take any steps. So, like,
Mm,
I was stalled out on developing my business because I was not at all confident that it would be a good, solid answer to replace my previous answer of how to make a living. But I also didn't want to beg for a job in this exploitative industry again. It did feel like starting over. And honestly, I'm still making that big shift now into finding my next step and taking it and pivoting when I need to, which takes humility and grit. Yeah. How did you make that shift yourself?
yeah. And I think a part of it too, for folks who maybe don't fully know my background and Melanie's background, is there's this uniqueness within the UX industry that I don't think a lot of people talk about, which a lot of the reasons why I think a lot of people are drawn to UX is around the ideals, empathy, being human centered, your values, essentially like who you are as like a good person and the things you care about. And what I've noticed, I'm curious what you think before I get to answering this question. What I've noticed is in light of basically since 2023, as the UX industry and part of being a part of the tech industry has witnessed and experienced mass layoffs. The job market out there is really rough. What I've noticed is a lot of people are having a hard time splitting their identity from who they are as a UX professional. A lot of their placement of their values and how their values are exercised, how they're experienced. A lot of people have found that outlet in their work in being a UX professional. And when you take that away, I'm finding that a lot of people are really struggling to find their footing again in terms of who they are and who they were created to be. I'm curious if you're noticing something similar or something different.
Totally. I mean, it's tied with the money and power too, but you're right that it was definitely pitched to us as a perk that this could be a way of connecting with our humanity to connect with humanity and other people.
Yeah.
And and so then to be like, "Oh, never mind, that's not valuable anymore."
Mm,
It starts to be like, "Well, then, okay, what is it that I bring in the world? Yeah, what do I have to offer really?" If now suddenly I'm being told that this deep part of my humanity that I valued engaging with is not of value.
yeah. I think that's a really good point that you highlight of we have these industries, people leaders within these companies saying, oh, UX isn't valuable. And because a lot of the values around UX are things that are deeply personal and internalized to many of us, a lot of folks can then hear that as, oh, I'm not valuable. And there's
Right.
almost like this disconnect, which is why I think it's important. And we practice this a lot within the Choose Courage Inc. community of like, how do we start to recognize and celebrate our wins and our value before waiting for someone else to tell you, yes, that's valuable and that's worthy of time and recognition.
So
Yeah.
key for sure.
For sure, for sure. And I'm going to dab a little bit with the question that you asked and actually maybe talk a little bit more about wealth, because I think when you talk about power and money, you also have to talk about this concept of wealth. And I feel like my understanding of wealth and my relationship to it has changed significantly since I have distanced myself from the UX industry, but also since I've gone and pursued entrepreneurship full time. And I think I used to see wealth used to mean arrival for me. It meant that I had made it. It was kind of this like goalpost in some ways, like a certain number in the bank, a certain kind of freedom, a certain level of proof that I had made it. And now wealth feels quieter. It feels less like a finish line and more like a rhythm in terms of how I relate to time and to life and to peace. Really, how do I relate to life in a way that doesn't require me to fracture myself to feel safe? Because that was kind of the ritual and the habit being in corporate. I was contorting myself, I was second guessing, I was having to kind of fit myself in this mold that wasn't really me. And so now to me, wealth is the capacity to express who I am without financial fear muting my truth. Because that's why a lot of people are afraid to advocate for themselves, to speak out. And when you're afraid because you don't want to quote unquote bite the hand that feeds you, it's a lot more likely for us to kind of compromise on our values or to lose our voice in the midst of it. So now, like, wealth is being able to say no to what drains me and yes to what expands me. It's about having enough, and not just about enough money, but also enough energy, like enough time, enough courage, so that I can create from a place of integrity instead of survival. So I can create from a place of clarity instead of, a place of scarcity or like fear. So now, like, wealth is less about the dollar signs per se, and it's more about alignment,
Yeah.
knowing my values and letting them guide my business decisions, being creative enough in my business so that we can be well resourced, so that we can be even more generous, more intentional without performing generosity. There's a lot of things that my businesses have done behind the scene that no one will ever know about. And I love that.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it's about how do I build something without betraying myself in the process? And so that's probably been like my biggest shift. It's not about chasing the dollar sign per se or chasing wealth to quote unquote prove myself, but it's about chasing what nourishes me instead.
I think a lot of people will relate to that, and it's something that you can't really know until you're deep in a career path and
Mm.
suffering the consequences of that dividing of yourself and abandoning yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, like, how have you been shifting and working through that, now that you are fully in your business and whatnot?
I mean, it's definitely changed my idea of wealth too. Like leading up to this layoff, I was thinking about retirement and saving for retirement and investing so that I could have enough money when I'm done working. And, maybe that is another aspect I still want to think about like later in life, but I'm definitely like you thinking more consciously about right now
Mhm.
and what am I willing to sacrifice and how can I build a better model? So, yeah, I'm in agreement with you that wealth is more like these intangible but very critical things like time and rest. I like how you said rhythm. Yeah, it's like being able to move at my own speed, like leisure and appreciating the beauty of life on earth and
Yeah.
spending time with my friends and going on adventures with my girlfriend, like visiting my family in Texas when I want to.
Mm.
It's, my art collection from local artists. It's being able to furnish my live workspace.
Mhm.
It's a chance to think about what I need and what the world needs rather than what my boss wants from me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's a chance to like tap into the parts of my brain and my nervous system that dance whenever they're used together to touch people's lives.
Mm. I love
That's
that.
that's it feels like wealth.
Yeah. I think that's why I'm a sucker for those Instagram videos where it's the guy who's like eats up a stone that he found in nature and he's like cutting up the fish and it's just you're hearing the water, like the bubbling brook right in the background. And there's just this level of presence. I think that's what it is. I think wealth in the past was tied to scarcity plus the unknown, right? And your mind is kind of fixated on the unknown, the what if, well, how come, instead of what could be. And I think that's why, like, I really love those Instagram reels of people just cooking out in nature. Or I found this woman today where she made this like smoke pit out of stone and all these things in her backyard. And there's just like a presence and something that not forces you to be present, but you want to be present. And I think that other ways in the past relating to wealth didn't really create space for that.
I totally agree. I think about like how I struggle with like addiction to my phone and what that's rooted in really is like escapism
Hmm.
of getting through this moment and like seeking something else, but it's like a lack of presence. And it's like I really got used to that. And the alternative is something that takes effort to build, but it's so worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, and we'll do a deeper dive in a second, but it's why I really love how you're designing and creating your business. I see a lot of what you do at the intersection of self, of care, of healing, of creativity. And how do you also see and understand care as a restorative act? So you talk a lot about self-love through feeling good in what we wear. And I'm wondering, maybe you could share a little bit with us, like, how do you see clothing as a healing practice or something that can be a part of someone's healing?
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, clothing is such an intimate relationship with our bodies. And it can make such a world of difference if we're feeling prepared or feeling comfortable or warm enough. And it can help us feel understood as we would like to be understood. And the process of finding what feels right for us to wear can really lead to a deeper self discovery, much deeper than just clothing.
Hmm.
That's when it's going well. When it's not going well, our clothing and how we look can really zap our confidence and make us not feel at home in our bodies. So just through prioritizing and pursuing a better fit or an outfit that gives us comfort or a little more joy, to me, that's a major act of self love.
Yeah. Yeah. That resonates. That resonates. I remember in 2023, I was in one of the darkest seasons of my life. Like 0 out of 5 stars. Tease, but terrible. Like it was really bad. And during that season too, I had developed just not a healthy relationship with my body. I had gained a lot of weight from the stress and the depression, which made me not feel comfortable in my skin. I hadn't worked through a healthier way of relating to myself in those moments. And I found myself wearing a lot more. Well, first of all, I love the color black. So I will always wear the color black. But I found myself hiding because I also wasn't feeling a sense of closeness and care for like my body. And it wasn't until, again, probably 2 years into this healing journey following 2023 of developing a healthier relationship with my body, who I am, regardless of the condition that my body's in, being more curious around, all right, how do I want to express myself, honor myself, reconnect with myself through clothing, through other things, that I was able to shed my pandemic wardrobe. Because a lot of, I don't know about you, but even in 2023, there's just like a lot of things where I'm like, I'm not going outside. So why not keep the pandemic wardrobe going?
No,
And
totally. It's house clothes. We're in the house.
yes, all the time. And now I'm in this journey of, ooh, what's my style? What do I enjoy? What are the things that make me feel good? And feeling good is a big part of healing. So like I love that you've mentioned that and brought that up. Yeah.
I mean, your story, you're not alone. Many of us share that journey through the pandemic. It's interesting too that 2023 was your deep, darkest time because I think
Mhm.
that was true for me as well. That was like the peak of the depression and confusion and like totally feeling unrooted with my ideas of who I am and what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, this is Vivianne, and I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. And I just wanted to pause for a quick moment to say that this podcast is ad free on purpose. And we want to keep it that way so that it feels like a space that's just for us and just a little bit more divorced from noise on what we should buy and what we should consume. And so the best way to help us do that is by sharing it with someone you think would really connect with it, someone who you think would feel encouraged or get something out of this episode, or by leaving an honest review because it helps more folks find us. And honestly, it could be the exact thing someone else needed to hear today, just because you took a moment to spread the word. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you, and let's get back to it.
Yeah. So I think it is an opportunity for healing when the spark of inspiration comes back around and you start to have that motivation for what you want for yourself.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, and how has your own healing shaped how you hold space for others' self-expression? Because that's a huge part of the work that you do.
Yeah, so this is getting into my queer journey. So for me, experimenting and learning through how I dress allowed me to reach for freedom in ways that I didn't even know that I needed. I remember having so much strife, it's kind of silly now, but so much strife with my former spouse about pants. I remember that there was this pair of pants that I felt so much excitement about wearing. It was a different cut that was sort of breaking the really strict heteronormative image of, quote, women's jeans. And yeah, my ex showed dislike for these jeans, and it actually revealed to me there was a deeper difference of opinion going on between us.
Mm.
It was about more than just the pants. And it helped me see that I was actually actively queering my presentation to proudly engage with my queerness. And with time, I recognized that that relationship was actually holding me back from embracing queer relationships at the center of my life rather than something I managed in the background of this heteronormative image. And so I'm really grateful to have gone through that strife and now be living that freedom fully. So, that's just my story, but I realized how consequential it can be to get closer to feeling one's truest self by wearing it proudly.
Yeah, and I guess the one thing I'm also hearing in your story, as you think about how your own healing has shaped how you hold space for others' self-expression, it sounds one of the things that has to happen first is for you to give permission and space for you in terms of how you self-express and to not have outside opinions, fears, whatever, play a heavy hand in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I hope for folks who are listening who are curious about other ways and modalities to reconnect with yourself, to experience healing, I hope people feel encouraged and see that clothing, expression, style is another way to do it. It doesn't have to be all, the grit of therapy, which is important and has its place, but there can be other ways of reconnecting with yourself and to experience healing through that. So I hope for folks who are listening that you're able to give yourself a little bit of a permission as you understand healing as a practice and clothes expression can be a part of that. Yeah. I wanna pivot us a little bit from healing as a practice to maybe courage as a practice, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship. I have a very deep belief that entrepreneurship can and should be a healing experience. It can be an opportunity for us to be more creative as we're thinking about how to build something. How do we contribute more than we complain? How do we contribute to solutions via creativity and curiosity? And I know that running a business isn't just about systems and all the things we quote unquote need to do. It's also about mirrors and the ways that entrepreneurship will have you tell on yourself and take a look at yourself. I'm wondering if you would be open to maybe sharing what has entrepreneurship revealed about you and in this journey? Yeah.
Well, that's so real that it's a mirror. Well, as I said, my previous training really did not prepare me for this. I definitely had that mindset of following established pathways that someone else has defined for success. And as much as I saw myself as a leader within those structures, I had no clue how to create the structure myself from scratch. So, in fact, I heard a lot of messages from even people who care about me and believe in me about how it takes this like certain kind of person. I'm sure you've heard this too.
Mm,
It takes a certain kind of person to be a successful entrepreneur. And it's going to
nice.
be so much work that you got to make a lot of sacrifices And every time I heard that, I looked at myself and I knew for sure I was not that person. I'm just not willing, honestly. I'm not willing to sacrifice my rest, my pleasure, my rhythms to life. I'm going to do things at my pace. And
Mm.
I'm not going to put in the hard work I thought that it takes. It sounds too hard. So, yeah, I just didn't think I was that person. It was a tough mirror.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine too that mirror, it's kind of like, remember like the fun houses with the distorted kind of mirrors? We're being told like we need to look at ourselves through this particular mirror and lens. But sometimes that's a distortion, right? And it's not necessarily the best mirror we even need to be looking through.
I do think that being in parallel to other entrepreneurs has really helped me recalibrate that view of myself for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, when I think about what has entrepreneurship revealed about me, because, oof, entrepreneurship's a mirror for sure. Entrepreneurship has been maybe one of the most confronting mirrors I've stood in front of. It stripped away that illusion that I was ready enough or healed enough to lead something meaningful. Because building a business doesn't just test your strategy, it tests your self trust. And it's not about, I need to be at a certain arrival point to do something. It's about, do I trust myself enough to figure it out, to be kind to myself in the midst of the ups and the downs, and to know how to ask for help when I need it? I think for me, it revealed how much I often confuse control with safety. Oof,
Oh, yeah.
man. Yeah. And how deeply I crave freedom, but I could still try and earn it through doing the right things or the checklist of things that are quote unquote need to be done. It revealed to me how easily I can turn purpose into pressure. You can even good things can be used in a way that drive anxiety, right? Yeah, especially when you start believing that, ooh, this all depends on me. And well, what if I drop the ball? Then you're putting a lot of angst and anxiety on you when you're not here to save everyone. So, but it's also revealed like the strength underneath all that, right? That a part of me, the part of me that's resilient and intuitive and really unwilling to settle for survival's sake. Entrepreneurship has showed me that I'm not fragile. As I reflect on kind of like, I can't do corporate. Like I just can't. I've done my time, I've done my years, and I can't do it. And it's not because I'm fragile, but it's because I recognize I personally cannot continue to be in environments that rewarded my self-abandonment. I can't do it. Therapy's been really huge for me in this. In part, like I look at certain people, especially like within my family, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to be on this perpetual, never ending cycle of self abandonment. Like I don't think I want to live my life that way, and I've seen what it does to other people. And so, the mirror of entrepreneurship keeps asking me the same question over time. Will you choose alignment over approval? Will you choose, alignment over forfeiting your peace, right? And so, yeah, that's a little bit of what entrepreneurship has been revealing and has revealed to me.
Uh, You know, I I've heard bits of your story, but it is nice to hear about the experience you had and what you've overcome this path. And it makes a lot of sense because you have a lot of understanding for what each of us is facing as we go through these really harsh self confrontations.
Yes. Self-confrontations and really learning how to be in relationship with yourself again. This is like a side note. This is something new I've been doing the last couple weeks. On the back of my phone, I have this picture of me when I'm like 3 or 4. It's like my phone background screensaver. And I have it there as a reminder for me of I want to make sure I am becoming the adult, the woman that my younger self would have felt safe and affirmed with.
My gosh, I'm gonna cry. That's so sweet.
And so like I have this picture and I'm just like I'm really happy and smiling this picture and it's like a reminder of I'm doing the things I need to do for little me, right? And it's been a nice way to kind of like gut check myself of am I doing things that are in alignment with the person that my younger self would have felt safe with and would have run to. And entrepreneurship has definitely helped me have more of those moments of alignment and like adjustment. But it does go back to am I becoming more of the person, the woman that my little me would have needed and wanted, right?
That'll cut right through the bullshit right there. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
might
Yeah.
I might have to steal that strategy.
Yeah, maybe I'll put it in our entrepreneurship community of it can even be like a 1 week thing you do, right? You can make it a forever thing. But also it'd be cool to see everyone's baby pictures in the community.
Yeah, I can see the show and tell lighting up right now.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. So yeah, so you ended up finding Choose Courage Inc. at sounds like just the right time
Yeah.
as you were thinking about I didn't realize that was like the context leading up to you joining the program. So I love hearing more of your story as well. I love to hear about just your experience with Choose Courage Inc.'s group coaching program. Yeah, like what were or what was, your biggest mindset shift since joining Choose Courage Inc.?
Yeah, it was a big shift. Just even starting the program gave me so much hope. And then how you began the course also just had so much impact because you start by asking each participant in the group about every dimension of who they are, getting to know how they work, how they think, how they move. And there was a moment when it hit me that having my, type B personality could actually maybe work in my favor here because,
Mm,
I value life so highly, life outside of work, that maybe that means that I'm actually in less danger of burning myself out through how I structure my business. And I like how you showed us that all of these fears actually point to our values. And I try to remember that, things like jealousy and fear and like all these feelings that bother us are pointing to values and opportunities for better alignment. So yeah, I learned through this course how to start with my values and build my business practices on that foundation. That was a huge breakthrough.
I love that. I love that. And I think too, yeah, it gets back into the belief that yes, I believe entrepreneurship can and should be a healing experience, but that requires us to know ourselves in a very intentional and thoughtful way.
I appreciate that you're not prescriptive about people's values that they should hold, but that help us listen to ourselves in that
Mm,
way.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm curious too, for me, I have a deep belief as well that entrepreneurship should be a shared experience and not a solo journey. And that helps with loneliness, it helps with getting in your own head, all these things. But how has being a part of the community that we have helped you navigate the fears or stories that come up when you are building something new and you're creating something for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of sharing our stories and struggles. So I think about the examples that people have shared about challenges that could have halted their progress. I think about the things I've faced that have caused me to run off and apply for jobs. And y'all have pointed out strategies for pivoting and you really set the expectation that the game is about the pivot twirl, I think is what you were saying. That stuck in my head. Yeah, I don't see those anymore as like insurmountable barriers. And now that I imagine the path ahead as lots of learning and experimentation, I have a mindset that includes those pivots as a part of the plan. And I was really letting that get me stuck, um,
Mm,
each time, like in a crisis kind of way before. Also, I'm connecting with so many people whose hearts are tender and their minds are brilliant. And, I see in parallel to me so many capable people who I truly believe in. And it helps me to be with my own tenderness and believe in my own success too.
I love it. Yo, tender hearts and brilliant minds. Yeah, that's a vibe. I know selfishly for me, like I need this community as well. It's funny, like even I was talking to my assistant the other day because she edits a lot of our recordings. She's also in the our Discord. And
Hi,
so she's seeing a
Annie.
lot. And so she's seeing a lot of the messages, and she had even made this comment to me the other day of, wow, it's so encouraging and exciting to see like what's happening in the community, to see other people who are being curious and wanting to build. And she's like, it's making me realize like I can build something too. So
Ooh,
unbeknownst to all of y'all, you are also inspiring people that are watching you that you don't even realize it. So I think that's really powerful and that's really beautiful.
that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that's touching.
I want to do a little deep dive here into your actual business and like what you're doing. Maybe before we get into it, maybe just give like a high level description of your business and what you do.
Yeah, I'm a personal stylist, personal wardrobe stylist. I like to say with tender loving care. So I try to bring a extra dose of humanity into this because in my experience dressing people, it's such a vulnerable process. There's no matter what your vision is and your hopes and dreams are for how you dress, it's going to touch a lot of sensitivities, maybe things that you hadn't even really fully dealt with yet. So there's a sensitivity to it, but I like to focus on self-actualization connected to how we dress. So I'm helping people tune into their own sense of themselves and to let that be a dynamic process. And at the same time, I try to use strategies that are sustainable. So shopping first with secondhand items and upcycled things and working with local designers helps to keep fabric out of landfills, but it offers so much more individuality and character to people's expression than buying the new trend.
Yeah, I love that. And for those who don't know, what's the name of your business?
It's Topisma.
TOPISMA. I think what I really appreciate about TOPISMA and what's made me excited working with you over these months is how deeply human and holistic it is. Like, you have a really unique approach to styling that I don't see a lot these days. Maybe can you maybe share a little bit more about how your styling packages at TOPISMA or the LGBTQA two spirited plus community and allies, how that embodies your values of collaboration, sustainability, and self expression. Talked a little bit in terms of when it comes to the sustainability piece, but would love to hear a little bit more about, yeah, your values across collaboration, sustainability, and self expression.
Yeah, thanks for the chance to talk about my baby. I I just love using my human-centered design research knowledge to get into a person's many facets and then help them see beyond the limiting boxes that we all feel confined to about how to dress. So I get to help them tap in inspiration. And that's a difference that I've seen between my approach and other styling services offered around Seattle. It's not just my taste that people are paying for. It's a co-creation process. So we're going to weave in that person's history, their wholeness, and their hopes into an outfit so that when they look in the mirror, they have to stay a while to appreciate the presence of all of those things.
Mm,
And I hope that, my clients walk out of the house vibing with that sense of alignment.
yeah. I mean, in many ways, you are helping people to reconnect not only with themselves, but with their voice again, right? To allow people to understand what they want and what they need and to be able to enjoy a different relationship with that versus one that probably often falls into contorting or having to shrink themselves.
Totally. I think the TV shows where we see styling, done for TV, there's an emphasis on that old version of you is garbage and oh my gosh, so much better now. believe you look so bad before. Like,
Mm,
that's just not necessary. That's torture.
yeah.
And also, I don't think my therapist would approve of that approach. I think, we want to retain our wholeness and carry all of that forward. And so, the transformation that can be a part of the personal style journey includes all of who you've always been, all of who you've always been before.
Yeah,
Um, it's not abandoning it like you were talking about.
absolutely. Can you maybe share a story of when you were reminded why you do this work? Maybe give some more context to folks around the work that you do.
Yeah, it's hard to pick a favorite story. I often walk away from a styling session with a pep in my step and like dancing around from just the joy of it. And I felt that way recently with my client, Jeff.
Mm,
So he was hesitant at the beginning to experiment with new silhouettes, but he was curious and wanted to be adventurous. So we, walked that line carefully, and to my surprise, by the end of our process, he had by himself found several additional pieces through his travels to Europe, and it was inspired by concepts that were initially uncomfortable. So at the end, we're putting together outfits, and I took photos of him in each look. And I just sat for such a long time staring at these photos because you could just see in his face and body language, like the way he was embodying joy and confidence with his new looks.
mm,
And that's what I'm hoping that I can help people tap into when we work
yeah.
together.
What I also hear is Jeff probably experienced what a lot of us maybe haven't in relationship with our clothes, which is joy and relief.
Relief for sure. You can hit a dead end very quickly if you're going by negative feedback, which I think is what a lot of people are navigating when they're deciding what to wear. And it leaves you with very little to work with. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. And again, I remember in one of our sessions, you had talked about how you want people to feel excited and happy to get dressed.
As opposed to dread, because that's actually very common, like looking at your
Mm,
closet and feeling like this is full of clothes and I have nothing to wear.
yeah.
And I don't, yeah, it can definitely be a moment of dread. And I would love to partner on moving towards that situation where it's such a relief and even an inspiration to look into your closet.
Yeah. I love that because I remember again 2023 I was in the thick of it. And I'm sure you come across clients who do this a lot where they keep that piece of clothing, that article or two where it doesn't fit them anymore, but they're like, but one day, I will. But it also becomes this like haunting in your closet. And it can become this trigger or this moment of like angst of, man, like I'm not where I want to be versus learning how to be more kind and compassionate to yourself with where you are. Like, my biggest thing was because I actually did work with a stylist very briefly when I was in that low point because I had reached this point where I was like, I'm depressed AF. I'm not feeling comfortable in my own body, but I don't need to wait until I meet these standards that I put on myself or the standards that the world's putting on me in order for me to feel good about how I feel and how I look. And so I booked a couple sessions with someone. And I think for me, like, at least what I hope for folks who are listening to this, if you are finding yourself in a place where you're uncomfortable in your own skin, maybe you are in, the thick of a depression or you're just on the other side of it, like you don't have to wait for things to quote unquote be ideal or be, picturesque in order for you to do more loving and kind things for yourself that make you feel good in your skin.
Totally. You deserve to feel at home in your clothing, in your body right now, not just in a future contingent state.
Yeah.
And I have hosted so far one, but I'm planning to host more clothing exchanges because I
Mm,
do want to kind of honor the body change and like the crisis that can come from that, because you have good pieces, but maybe they're not fitting you in the way that is serving you well. And it's hard to let go of clothing items when you know they're good, on their own. But it can feel so great to flow those back into the community and to receive new pieces in that same way, free of charge. And once again, like saving clothing from a landfill.
yeah,
So that's a part of the experience, the community that I want to build around TOPISMA.
I love that. And so where can listeners go to learn more or even to book a session with you?
I have my website up at www.topisma.com. It's spelled TOPISMA. And then I have my Instagram too, which is Topisma Seattle with an underscore in between.
I love it. And for folks who are listening, if you pop over to the show notes, we'll put the T and all those details in there. So don't worry, we got you. I want to end on a note of hope, especially in these times. I'm a deep believer of. I'm constantly reminding myself that hope is not a scarcity, and if anything, it's a discipline. If you could speak to the version of yourself who had just been laid off, what would you tell her now?
Yeah, I mean, I would hold her head in my hands and say, it's okay that you don't have it all figured out right now.
Hmm,
And you won't be alone on the way forward. You
hmm.
will be held and you will keep growing.
I think that's a really good note. And I think for some of y'all, I hope you can imagine yourself holding your own head in your hands and just being that kind and generous and gracious to yourself. Because we have to be careful how we talk to ourselves because we're listening. So, so we need to. So I love that message to yourself. Mel, thank you so much for hopping on Choose Courage Inc. on this podcast and just for sharing a little bit more about your vision, your story. I appreciate your candor, your vulnerability, and I'm excited just to see the ways that you continue to help other people see self-expression as a form of healing. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks for this conversation. It was, yeah, very touching and got to know more about you too. Appreciate that.
Thanks for hanging out with us and diving into some of these real and unfiltered conversations. We know your time is valuable, and so we don't take it for granted. If today's episode made you think, if it challenged you, or gave you something new to consider, we'd love for you to hit that follow button on whatever streaming service you're using. That way, you'll never miss an episode when we drop them. And if you want to go even deeper, sign up for our newsletter at choosecourageinc.com, and you'll get updates on new episodes, access to exclusive freebies, and first dibs on coaching opportunities and other resources to help you make bold moves in your life and business. So we appreciate you, we see you, and we're rooting for you. Until next time, keep choosing courage over comfort, and a friendly reminder to drink some water.